Welcome back to the second episode of Neel Sits Down. I'm just going to pick up right where I left off. A lot of stuff has happened since I taped the last episode. I taped the pilot 3.5 months ago, and towards the end of 2025, and it's already almost the end of January now in the new year. Things have been good, though. Probably the best year of my life was 2025. And I want to get there, but I really need to finish 2024. Last episode, I kind of lost my steam when I started talking about my cat, Dawg. His name's Dawg, D-A-W-G. So my parents and I had moved into their new home, and it was pretty far away. It was remote, away from everything, which was refreshing. And I was looking forward to having a new clean slate, just kind of starting over in all aspects of my life. And just when I thought that I was ready to start that healing process, Dawg went missing. Like the second night that we had moved in. Not entirely sure how it happened, but it was unfortunate. Most of the time they can come back. They know how to get back to their home base, but it was a new home. He didn't even have any scents attached to the home. He barely used his litter box there. And he was just exploring in a new area, miles away from anything that he remembers. And this was at a point in my life where I was already down horrendous. I was at the heaviest I've ever been in my life. I was 230 pounds. I was divorced. I wasn't really near any of my friends in the Bay. So if I wanted to see them, I'd have to drive at least an hour each way. And I didn't have an outlet for my creativity. I was so close to all the stand-up clubs in New York, and all of a sudden now, in order for me to perform stand-up, I had to drive at least an hour to an hour and a half and start the whole networking process over. Because that is one of the hardest things about stand-up, is getting stage time. Good stage time, I should say. You can get stage time anywhere. I've done some terrible gigs, which I'll talk about the worst one that I ever did soon. But I just didn't have every aspect of my life, besides professionally. I mean, I somehow managed to keep my job, but I was not performing at my best. It's amazing I didn't get fired on top of everything, But anyways, it just on every aspect of my life, I was just down horrendous. And that was when Dawg ran away. And I couldn't believe just how bad things were. It was almost comical just how at that moment where I felt like I needed him the most, he ran away, and it felt like he was taken away from me. It didn't feel like he ran away. It felt like someone was just fucking with my life and was just like, you know what would really, really upset him? You know what would really push him past his breaking point? Let's take his cat away. Yeah, it just felt like someone was, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt like someone was doing all this stuff to me, because there's no way all these things lined up right at this moment in my life, just compounding every week. It was a new thing that just pushed me lower and lower. Every week I'd wake up on like a Tuesday and I'd be like, this is the worst day of my life. And then next Tuesday would be like, you thought. And I'll be like, no, you're right. This is the worst Tuesday. And then next week it'd be like, guess again. And it was just one after another. And when Dawg went missing, I really, really couldn't believe it. And like every day, that's the worst part, is every day I would wake up and I'd be like, maybe he isn't gone. And I would check like the closets or something just to make sure that he wasn't just like hiding in boxes of clothes that we hadn't unpacked yet or something like that. And after, it took me a couple of weeks to really, really admit to myself that he was gone. And, they say that after 2 weeks, there's like an 85% chance that they don't come back. So I kind of lost a lot of hope after about a month. And I just started to accept the fact that I wasn't really going to see him again. And I would go out at night. I tried driving. I scattered like his litter that he had used once around the house. Maybe he was going to pick up a scent and come back. And nothing really happened. And what was gross was maybe 2.5 months in, I was still going through it. I was sitting on my front porch, and I was calling one of my friends at the time, just kind of catching up, having a heart-to-heart. And I heard a meow, and then my heart jumped a couple of beats, and I look up from my phone, and I see like a cat, and it's just like underneath my dad's car. And I get really excited, and I tell my friend, I'm like, dude, I think it's Dawg. And then I go out there, and it's the neighbor's cat. And it just felt like a sick joke. Like someone was just fucking with me. It was really hard for me to accept that this is just the way that things were. Because that's what I would, if I was like omnipotent and I was having a bad day as God, I would just take it out on a human like myself. I'd be like, yo, let's fuck with him. Right when he lost his hope, let's give him a little bit of hope, just a little bit, and then crush him down further than he was before. That's what that felt like. And this fucker was eating all the food that I was leaving out for my cat. I was leaving food out every day because I was like, maybe he gets hungry and he needs to come back. And it wasn't even just the one neighbor's cat. A lot of people had cats. So it started attracting like all these other cats. And every night I would start to see all these other cats, and none of them were mine. So I stopped leaving food out. I was like, dude, this is worse than not. Like just having that little like glimpse of hope every time you hear a meow or see like a little shadowy figure at night scuttering away. That kind of sucked. And in a way, when Dawg left, I think it forced me to really be by myself and reflect. And I didn't do it immediately, but it did force me to kind of go through what I was meant to go through. Because when you hit a rock bottom in your life, you have to just work through it mentally. You could do a lot of things to avoid it. Like I was drinking it away. I was getting high, just trying to hang out with friends. I was going to expensive restaurants. I wasn't even enjoying the food. I just wanted to do something to make it seem like I still had a cool life. And eventually, that isolation from my cat, as well as from my home base, and from all my friends, and not having a creative outlet, it forced me to look inward and kind of figure out what to do. And I didn't know what I had to do just yet, because everything was still so raw. Even 3 months after I had moved back home, everything just felt so wrong. I didn't know what direction to go in. But you know what's funny? I didn't even realize this. It took me 3 months to tell myself that I have to take control back. I guess for some reason, when you're in that state of mind where you're at the worst possible phase of your life, physically, mentally, career-wise, romantically, creatively, you don't think that these things are happening because of you and your choices and your outlook on life. You think that it can only be true because someone else must be cursing you, or you have been dealt the worst hand ever. And it was really hard for me to accept the fact that I had arrived at the place I was in life because of my own choices and my own decisions and my own mental outlook on life. So it took me 3.5 months for me to look inwards, be isolated, and tell myself, this is my fault. And that was the first step. That was the first step, and it was the most important step. I think a lot of people will stay in that zone of acting like it's not their fault. But one thing I've realized is that even when it isn't your fault, having the mindset that you could do something about it or could have done something about it makes things better in your life. Even if something wasn't my fault, if I put myself in the mindset of it was my fault, how can I make it better is always the next question, because it's immediately restructuring the way that you frame your problems. Instead of something being out of control, it is now within your reach to find a solution. And that's what those first 3 months were about. A lot of confusion. I don't remember too much about it. I was seeing some people sometimes. And one second. I was seeing good friends of mine, but then something I noticed about being at your rock bottom, you will have a lot of friends. People love to be your friend when you're at rock bottom, man. Because what's better than a friend that you are doing better than? That's how a lot of people think. A lot of people wanted to hang out with me when I came back. People who I haven't talked to in years. People who I haven't seen. People who haven't even bothered to reached out to me. And at the time, I was thinking I was so lonely and I was so vulnerable that I thought to myself, wow, this community has really opened up. People really care about me. They want to like know what happened. They want to like talk to me. They want to hang out. They want to buy me a beer. But they just wanted to know what happened in the divorce. And I was happy to tell them. I told a lot of people, a lot of intimate details. And because I was still in that mindset of it wasn't my fault. Can you believe how crazy this was? Can you believe how terrible everything was that happened to me? Can you believe it? And they sat there and listened to the whole thing. And then I never saw them again. They got what they wanted, and they heard my story. They just wanted to get a piece of gossip to go back and tell, report back to their home base. And I didn't realize that's what was happening. I thought that people were actually being friendly. That definition of friendship has changed a lot, especially as you get older. You're not really forced to see people. So everything becomes intentional. So when people do things like that, it really hurt my feelings. And it hurt my feelings more because I was like, how could I be so dumb? You're so old now. You should know better. You should know that people are like this. They're inherently selfish, and very, very few of them are going to truly care about you. And I started to realize that even people who I thought were close to me weren't. It was one-sided. They knew a lot about me, but I didn't really know a lot about them. And when I stopped telling people things about myself, they stopped reaching out. Especially after the divorce. That was the worst part. So many people wanted to hang out. So many people wanted to be my friend. And now I'm at this amazing point in my life. I put out my comedy special in December. I had the best year of my life. I'm doing better financially. I lost 37 pounds. And, I started a podcast. I did so many things, and I'm thriving. I'm not just living, I'm thriving. And you know what? You would think that people want to congratulate you and cheer with you. But the truth is, man, people are rooting for you, kind of. And they want to support you, but they don't want you to be better than them. That's a really important thing. Even your friends. I know, some of you are probably thinking like, oh, you don't have good friends. And that's not true. I do. I have really, really good friends who did cheer me on and support me and will reach out. When I posted this special, so many people reached out like, dude, I'm glad you finally did it. You've been talking about it for so long. You taped it like 3 years ago. That's so cool. I'm going to get around to watching it. And then they watched it and they reached out, but so many people who I thought were my friends and were on my side and were cheering for me, all of a sudden, when I started actually thriving in life, they're not there. They're not there, and at worst, they passive aggressively put me down, downplay my wins, and that was a gross realization. It was a good realization, but again, I just felt so stupid. I felt like I should have known that. Sometimes I feel like I have too much faith in other people because I feel like I act a certain way and I have this outlook on life and I just assume that others do as well. But nah, it's not true. Most people just are really selfish and they have a really good way of hiding it, especially to people like me who assume the best in others. I love those phrases, man. Assume the best in others. That's exactly what a shitty person wants you to think. You know what I mean? Like, be the bigger person. Why? I mean, I will be. But these phrases are just exactly what a piece of shit wants you to think. So, I kind of see the truth behind a lot of things now. I appreciate the ones who are real and are still around. I like that. I like the fact that things are a bit more intimate now, and I can tell who's there for drama, who's there for some gossip and stories, and who's really around to understand my pain, because I didn't have a lot of that in 2024. I was very confused. When I was catching up with people going through that stuff for the first 3 months, it was kind of a dark time. I really don't remember much of it beyond that. Eventually, though, when I did accept the fact that things were my fault, I started to realize I'm in a unique position in my life, because I have all this time and I'm using it to just sleep. That was another thing too. I was barely awake. I would sleep like 10 to 12 hours at night, and then I would wake up, have my coffee, and then eat lunch maybe. And then immediately after lunch, I would take a nap for like another 4 to 5 hours. And I would work late into the night and then repeat the cycle. Like, I was completely turned around. My schedule was backwards. And I was unconscious more hours in the day than I was conscious. And when I was conscious, I would usually take edibles or drink. And, I don't remember. I had to really, really focus on the moments where I was sober. I tried to do the stand-up thing because I was clinging on to this identity that I had for so long. I was doing stand-up for so long in New York City, and it was all I did. I didn't really explore other hobbies. I used to be into fashion. I kind of gave up on that. I stopped buying clothes. I hung out with friends and I did stand-up comedy. That's all I did for like 5 years in New York. And when I came back and I didn't have that, I really tried to do it again. And even though I was like really far from all these venues, I did my best to drive out there. I just convinced myself, well, you got to do what you got to do. And I would drive to San Francisco, to San Jose, to the East Bay, and all these places. I mean, I would drive up to 2.5 hours one way just to get 5 minutes of stage time in front of a shitty audience of like 40 to 50-year-old drunks at a terrible bar. And there's not even a microphone. You know what I mean? Like, it was just the worst. I hated it. And it wasn't fun. I wasn't having a good time. If I was just trying to prove to others, I wasn't even trying to prove it to myself. I was trying to prove to others, like, no, I'm still cool. I'm still funny. I'm still doing this thing. And what was scary beyond everything was this loss of identity. I had lost my identity again. It reminded me of when I was in high school and I got my surgery for my back. I had lost my identity then because I had spent so much of my waking hours playing tennis and training and being on the courts. And then all of a sudden when I had spine surgery, I didn't have that thing that filled up 80% of my life. And I didn't know who I was. So I went through all these different phases. Like I went through a stoner phase. I went through like a lifting phase where I was like, I'm going to be a big guy now, like a muscular. Like I went through so many things before I landed on the stand-up thing. And then I took the stand-up thing so far for 5 years. And then all of a sudden I don't have that anymore. And that was tough for me to realize because one thing that I was seeking was control. And I didn't feel that level of control. I knew to have control again would be to admit to myself that stand-up isn't fun anymore. And I don't have to do it. I can just stop doing it. But I wasn't in control because I cared so much about what other people thought of me. And I wanted them to think that I was still a stand-up comedian. And that's why I was doing all this shit that I wasn't even having fun. I had like one good gig. And I kind of locked. I was at Rooster T. Feathers in Sunnyvale. I drove out there. It was like a 2-hour drive. And I invited a bunch of friends. And they gave me 12 minutes because I brought so many people. And that was actually one of the best sets I've ever done because I was just everything came out all at once. Unscripted stuff about the divorce, and I think I was talking about algorithms at the time. I didn't record it. Big mistake. I would have had a lot of material there. But besides that one set, I just wasn't having fun, man. Like, and so I stopped doing it. I think I had the worst gig of my life. I had to, I don't want to say who it was, but this one booker told me to go to Vacaville and said that he's got a gig for me there and I could do like 20 minutes. And I was like, all right, I don't get too many opportunities to run 20 minutes. And I get there and it's in one of the trashiest bars I've ever been to in my life. Everyone's wasted. It's a Wednesday. People are ripping lines just out in the open. And there's no microphone, by the way. I had to get up there on stage. And when I went up there, there was no microphone. And when I started talking, one of the guys got up like one of the guys in the audience saw me trying to do stand up, went to the jukebox and turned up the volume to drown me out. And that was minute 1. I had 19 more minutes. I don't know what I did for the rest of the 19 minutes. I have it on video. I don't think I'm ever going to watch that video again. I've never felt so unimportant in my life. Oh my God. And then after that gig, I told myself, I don't have to do things that I don't want to do. Not just in stand-up, but in life. Like, I don't have to say yes to every single thing. Important lesson, but man, what a shitty way to really go through, to have that breakthrough. So, didn't really do stand-up. People weren't genuine friends to me. My cat was missing. And one day, I woke up and I was bleeding. I was bleeding out of my asshole. I didn't know why. So I went to the emergency room and they told me I gotta get like a surgery done. A fistula, they called it. And I didn't really, I was like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? I had a spine surgery in 23. I had ACL reconstruction in 24. Now you're telling me I got to get surgery on my asshole in 2020? Like how many times am I going to go to the hospital, bro? How many times is my insurance going to like hit my maximum for the year? And that was, dude, that fucking sucked, dude, because I had just finally saved up a bit of money and I was putting it away in my savings account because I wanted to use it for moving out because I couldn't stand being in my parents' home. I just felt like a loser. And I don't know, man. I need my own space. So instead of putting $6,000 towards moving out and getting on with my life and rebuilding it, I had to put it towards a fucking asshole surgery. And you know what the crazy thing was? It didn't even work. The guy told me afterwards, like, yes, you are good. You will not need any more surgeries. Because sometimes there are complications in the surgery where you have to get it done multiple times. He was telling me, I don't think he should have told me this. The surgeon told me, yeah, I have a patient who's on her 10th surgery. It just keeps coming back for her. And he was describing medically exactly why it keeps coming back. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. It kind of sounds like you're running like this MLM scheme for like asshole surgeries. Very niche. But what the fuck does that mean, dude? 10 surgeries? And I was out for 2 weeks after the surgery. I couldn't sit down on it, afterwards. And I thought that the problem was gone. And it just wasn't. It came back, dude. So no genuine friends, cat missing, my asshole's all bloody from surgery and shit. God, so much kept happening, one after another, dude. I just could not catch a break. Down financially too. Saved up, man. That's $6,000. That really hurts, man. That goes a long way if you use it right. Instead, it just went to my insurance. I will say, I think I'm the one guy where my insurance company is losing money on me because 3 surgeries in 3 years. Oh man, I almost feel bad for them if they weren't such pieces of shit. I fucking hate medical expenses, dude. I know way too much about it too. Been getting too many surgeries my whole damn life. But yeah, man, all the while all this stuff was going on, it's been like 4 or 5 months now, And I think at the 5.5 month mark, it was about to be 6 months until, like, it was about to be the 6 month mark where Dawg had been missing. So I was like, fuck it, man. And I actually, that was the moment where I gave up. I told myself he's not coming back. And then I worked my way through this whole thing in my head where I'm like, use it as a life lesson. Sometimes things in your life that you love and cherish are there, and the next second they're gone. So I started to become a lot more mindful of the things that I did have, which was good. But I still really, really missed having a companion like that. So I went to the shelter and I got a kitten. And I got her, she was very young. I think less than 2 months, maybe. She was very, very tiny. I named her Polly because she's, I don't know if this is the right word, polydactyl, I think. It's the thing where, like, cats, they're sometimes born with extra toes. So she has 2 extra toes on her front paws and 1 extra toe on her back paws. So she has a bunch of toes, like a lot more than a normal cat does. So I named her Polly. I also thought it was cool that I went to Cal Poly Slow. So I like that name. She turned out to be a little scaredy cat, though. She was nothing like Dawg. Dawg is very social. Dawg loves to just come up and ask for pets. He loves to cuddle with you. He loves to sit next to you. And if you bring a dog near him, he's very social. He'll go up and he'll assert his dominance. He'll like swat at the dog. Polly, on the other hand, is very, very shy. She's incredibly startled and she hides most of the day. It's very, very rare that she even lets you pet her or lets you hold her. So I was just like, dude, I'm stuck with this like weird ass cat. Like, I'm just like, this is a roommate that I don't get along with. And I was like expecting her. That was on me. I put a lot of burden on her. I'm like, you got to replace Dawg emotionally and physically, and you will be my new cat now. And she's just like, dude, fuck all that. Like, I'm not down with any of this. And she would just hide all day. And even my parents would say, like, man, I miss Dawg. Like, she's nothing like that. And she has her moments, though. She is really, really cute. And when she's sleepy is the only time where you can approach her and like pick her up. And she's so tired that she's like, fine, you can hold me. But for the most part, it's like she's got like this incredible sense of anxiety for most of her life. She's still like that now when I go back and visit her. So it's just a personality thing, I guess. But I got her at the 5.5 month mark, right? And at this point, I had somewhat started to piece my life back together. I'm like, all right, the first thing that I can do is stop drinking so much. So by around this point, I had gotten myself to stop drinking on the weekdays. So I decided I would only drink on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I would drink a lot on those days, but it was better than drinking a lot every single day. So I was making a little bit of progress there. I also started going to the gym. So I told myself I got to invest in myself. And I joined a nice gym because I realized that I need to remove some of the friction away from getting back in tune spiritually with my body. I've had all these surgeries. I've been disabled for so long that I had forgotten that I was an athlete. I forgot that I liked to train and that I liked to be flexible and strong. I had forgotten all that. So I had to remind myself. And I was like, why would I sign up for like the shittiest gym just to save money? I'm like, money should let me do the things that I enjoy. And I enjoy having a nice gym. Seems like a very straightforward thought, but at the time, I was kind of teaching myself how to live, how to not just live, but do the things that I enjoy, because I had forgotten a lot of that. I had forgotten to listen to music. I had forgotten to watch TV. I had forgotten to cook. When you get depressed, you forget that you like things, and you forget what those things are. They could be things you do every day. And I had forgotten about all this stuff. And so fitness was a big one. And I thought to myself, if I can just get the fitness on track, then I think the rest of my life will come together. Because when I'm fit, I break a sweat. My body gets aligned, and then it affects my mental health. After all, that was kind of the replacement for the antidepressants that I was on for so long. So I told myself, fuck it, I'm gonna join a nice gym. It'll be like $100 a month, but it'll be worth it. It's got a steam room, a sauna, a pool. It's got basketball courts, tennis courts. It's got everything, you know? And I started to get into a routine. That's something that I had forgotten. I had lost a routine. The whole stand-up thing, seeing friends in New York, all that stuff, I had a routine. I was going to regular mics, so I had things to look forward to. And that's what I realized I had to provide for myself, is not just wait for things to enter my life that I enjoy, is to plan for them and make sure that at the end of the day, I'm going to go to the gym and have a steam room and sauna. That's what I really look forward to, was the silent moment of sweating it all out in the sauna. And I rewarded myself with the sauna by working out. And when I started going to the gym, I can't believe I did this still, actually. I would spend 2.5 hours lifting, and I would do every single machine in the weight room, and I would do 3 sets of 15 on every single machine. And I didn't even hit the sauna at first. I was just learning how to get back into things. And I can't believe I had that much endurance and strength to lift for that long. And every single muscle group too. And I was doing that every other day. So my body was getting back into shape a little bit, strength-wise, but I was still eating a shit ton and drink, like whatever I would drink on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that would be plenty more. So I was still gaining a bunch of weight at this time. Anyways, 5.5 months in, I was going to the gym, right? And then one day I was coming out of the gym, and I was on my way home. I was gonna go to my usual routine of getting Chipotle and then heading back home. And then I saw on my phone I had like a bunch of missed calls, and I checked my voicemail, and someone had scanned Dawg's microchip at the vet, and they told me to call back immediately. They had the contact information of someone who brought him in, and I was freaking out. I was like, dude, there's no fucking way. I just got poly 2 weeks ago. You're telling me that he's found now? And my thoughts were racing. So I got in my car and I called them, and they said, yeah, we have the contact information of who found him. So I got the information. I called that number, and they said, yeah, he's been around the past few days. He looked really skinny, and he had a bite mark on his front paw. And so we were concerned for him, and so we took him to the vet, but they said that he's already owned by someone, so it wasn't an emergency situation, so they weren't able to actually treat him. The best thing that they could do was contact the owner, which is me, and they said, yeah, he usually comes by in the evenings, because they have like a big open like farmland, like they own property. It's not like they have a house on it, but they own a lot, and they have like cats that are all outdoor. So they said, yeah, he usually comes by in the evenings, and they said, maybe you can come by this evening, and I'm sure he'll come by. So I told my parents, and then all of us, we dropped everything that we were doing, and then we got into the car, and this fucking guy was across the street. That time, I don't know where he's been for 6 months, but I look up their address. I'm like, dude, I could walk here. But we got in the car anyways, and then we went across the street outside of our neighborhood, and then we enter their property, and then I see him, and he's just like running around, and he's just darting and like chasing like a bird or something. And then we introduce ourselves to the family who owns the property, and they were like, yeah, he's been coming by the past few days. We've only been seeing him for like 3 or 4 days, but he ate all of our cat's food. And they said they started leaving extra food out for him, and he gained his weight back really quickly. They said that he was very, very skinny when he came in, but now, because when I saw him, I was just like, he looks healthy. Like, he looks like he's been fending for himself. They're like, no, we plumped him up. And so they, when I got out of the car, and then they walked me over towards where he was hanging out and playing. I saw him running around chasing the bird, and then he looked right at me, froze in place, and then immediately darted right up to my leg, brushed up against it, was meowing a bunch, and then like within a few seconds, he looked at me again in the eyes, and then he just ran away super quickly and refused to get into the cat carrier. He refused to come anywhere near me or my parents, but especially me. He was avoiding. And so I had to have the owner pick him up, bring him to me, and he was acting like, I mean, rightfully so. He was acting pissed. Like, he was just like, dude, where the fuck were you? This whole time? He's like, I've seen some shit, and you were nowhere near there. And he was a little bit different. I felt really bad about the paw. I was like, man, he must have gotten into a fight or something with some other cats, or who knows, man. We live near coyotes and shit. But we eventually got him in the car, and then we drove to the hospital. We had to go to a special one, an emergency hospital, because it was late at night. It was around like 8 p.m., and a lot of the normal vets were closed. It was a weeknight. So we drove to, I think we drove like 40 minutes, and we went to the first hospital, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, we're at capacity. You'll have to go to this next one. So we drove another 20 minutes, and then we went to a second hospital, and then finally we got his thing treated there. But it was all so surreal. We were all in shock that we had found the guy. And when he got treated, he had like bandages. They put a cone on his head, and we brought him back. And we were just sitting at home at like 2 a.m. watching him just like mope around the house, because it wasn't even a familiar location for him. It was the new house. I mean, it was 5 months for us, but he was out on the streets for all that time. But I will say this, when we got him back, that moment where we reunited was the inflection point where my life started getting better. Everything fell into place after he came back. And I remember feeling it before it even happened. When we got him back and he was back in our home, I closed the door behind me, locked it, and then before I kind of put all my things down, I thought to myself, I think I'm over the worst part. And things started to get better naturally, At this point, I had gotten my gym routine down. And when he came back, I had the inspiration to really start studying for my professional engineering exam. That's been something that I wanted to do for a long time. It was a little bit overdue. I wanted to do it in New York. But I never really had the time. Well, that's not true. I had the time. I just never had the motivation to do it. I didn't have a good reason to do it, to be honest. I knew I always wanted, the title, and I knew that it was going to advance my career. But it wasn't until I had moved back home with my parents, and then I realized I'm not doing shit anyways. I might as well start studying for this thing. The exam is like 8 hours. It takes up a whole day. So, and it's kind of it's not expensive, but it's just annoying to pay all these fees for like the exam itself. And then I had to buy a prep course because I tried to start studying for it on my own in January. A couple months, basically a month after I moved back, I had started trying to study for it. I downloaded the practice exam from the website, and I remember just being so frustrated by how hard the problems were. I'm like, dude, I don't remember shit from college. Like, this is so hard right now. It's industry related too. And then I gave up for 2 months, 2 or 3 months. I was just like, man, fuck it. Like, do I really need to take this exam? And then again, it was because I was in that mindset of like, oh, this is out of control for me. I spent too much time like outside of college, so I'm not going to be able to understand this material anymore. Very limiting beliefs that I placed upon myself. And it wasn't until Dawg came back that I was like, anything is possible. If Dawg could come back, surely I can study hard enough and long enough to pass this exam. I mean, it's only 8 hours. I mean, I know how to do like some of the problems, maybe not all of them. And then I realized again, I can take steps towards overcoming this problem. What was the problem? I didn't know enough to pass this exam. And then I realized I can get a course. I can pay some money, which again, you have to restructure how you think about that, right? You can't just always be cheap and hold on to your money, because you have to think of these things like an investment. Like, yes, this course is $2,500. That's a lot of money. I just spent $6,000 on my asshole surgery. I don't have any money. This is all I have. But if I spend this money now, this extra couple grand, I'll set myself up better in the future. So I had to force myself to look at it as an opportunity and not like, I'm not just paying a bunch of money for like a dinner, which I do a lot. So I told myself, and I found a course for about $1,000. Shout out to Dr. Tom. Fantastic course. I recommend it to everybody I know who wants to get a licensure in engineering. But I had to really overcome this mentality of like, man, I'm just wasting this money, because it wasn't a waste. It really taught me the biggest thing that I learned from doing that course. It was a 20-week course. I realized that I wanted everything too fast. I wanted everything the next day at the latest. If I had to pass this PE exam, I wanted to know how to do the problems now without putting any of the work in. And that's when I realized I need to accept the fact that things take time. Good things that are earned, they take time, they take money, they take energy, really. And when I started doing the course, it was so nice because it provided me with a structure. Again, something that I was lacking at this point in my life. It gave me that structure, kind of like how college gave me classes to take and put me on a 10-week structure to exams, midterms. It gave me something to look forward to every day, every week, every month. And so this was a 20-week thing. And so I had to reschedule my exam. I paid the extra money to reschedule it. And I gave it an honest shot this time. I told myself 20 weeks sounds like a long time. But you know what? It's going to be even longer if I don't try. You know, life is long when you don't try. But when you're genuinely trying, it feels like you don't have enough time to do everything that you want to do. So I took those 20 weeks and I had a daily routine going for myself. I would actually wake up and I would make myself coffee. I would eat a lighter lunch so that I didn't feel like passing out in the afternoon. And after I finished my work for the day, around 4 or 5 p.m., I would log off and then I would immediately go to the gym. Before I had any time to think, before I had any doubts creep in, any moment of weakness creep into my body or my mind, I went to the gym. And then I got my lift in. I started eventually doing cardio again, so I started going on the elliptical slowly. And then I would hit the sauna afterwards, sometimes the steam room as well. I would spend, a good 3 hours at the gym. And afterwards, I'd be tired. I would get my Chipotle, and then I would take it home, and I would watch exactly one episode of Eastbound and Down. And I would watch it on my shitty monitors that my work gave me because I didn't have a TV. I had a nice TV in New York. I didn't have a TV here. So I didn't watch as much TV, but I do remember watching Eastbound and Down one episode every night while I ate my Chipotle. And then after I was done, it would be around 9 p.m. This was the hardest part. I would force myself to immediately shut it off, bring up the training modules, and then watch the videos and then study until around midnight. So that's what I would do every night. My night seemed more important than my day job because it felt like I was setting myself up for something grander in the future. And what those hours, like 9 p.m. to 12 midnight, where I was just studying, working out problems by hand, learning some new things, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was bringing me back this level of control over my decisions, over my outcomes in life. And every week I got stronger and stronger. I would do more and more. And instead of taking 20 weeks, I would study more and more every day. So I managed to get it down to, about 15 weeks. I got ahead of the course, and then eventually I just took a practice exam and I realized I knew so much more. And it wasn't until like that 3.5 month mark where I was like, everything came together to me. I was like, wow, I can't believe I was so afraid of putting $1,000 towards my future. If I took $1,000 and I took it to Vegas, it would be pretty fun and I would be much more down. But then if I had to tell myself, okay, instead of Vegas, instead of putting it on these odds that are out of your control, how about you put it in your control and you're guaranteed money back in the future in the form of a better job and a raise? And then I'd be like hesitating about that. I realized I was thinking about things I was prioritizing things in my life in such a backwards way. And I became really appreciative of the fact that I had come to this realization. I realized that I was actually working on bettering my life instead of waiting for someone else to make it better. That's what I really, really liked about having a routine back at home. And I was still miserable. Every day I would think about how much better my life was going to be when I made it down to Los Angeles. Every day I thought about it. I thought specifically about how dope it was going to be when I had my own TV and I had my own little apartment and I had my own little chair and I had a beer in my hand. How fucking cool would that be? That level of independence and doing whatever I wanted. that was the vision. And I realized to obtain that vision, I had to go through all this 20-week course, this routine of getting back into shape, dieting a little bit. That's and saving up my money. I stopped going out as much. It helped to only see people who were genuine in my life and only hang out with them, not spend money catching up with people who don't really care about me. So I was setting aside some money, and I had a high yield savings account that I had set up, and then I opened up a Schwab account for some investments, and everything was kind of financially, physically, mentally, spiritually, I was getting closer and closer to who I was before New York, because that's who I really, when you're with someone, I don't know, you are you, but you're a different version of you. You're like, your energy just gets mixed with this other person and it forms a new thing. And now both of you are this new thing. And when after 7 years being ripped apart from that thing, now I was rediscovering that fire within myself of where did the source for my fuel come from? And all of this, it made me realize that I was an ambitious person. I was a competitive person. I was ambitious. And for the most part, I got the things that I wanted because I would just do them. I wasn't thinking so much. I would just go do them. I wanted to be good at tennis, so I just played like 8 hours a day. I wanted to get big after my surgery because I couldn't play tennis, so I started lifting, and then I put on a bunch of muscle weight. I wasn't thinking. I was just doing these things, and now I kind of had to teach myself to stop thinking so much, especially stop thinking about what others thought, and just start doing the things that I know are good for me. Because if I know they're good for me, I don't need to ask other people, hey, do you think this is good for me? Because you just know. And that's what security is not needing to check in with other people. And I was feeling secure. I was really getting back to that feeling of security. One day, I realized that I have to start applying for jobs. And by the way, this entire time, it sounds like I'm having this gradual like build up and things are getting better and I'm having a positive outlook. It's not true at all. I was really depressed. Every day, I'm talking about this stuff in retrospect, so I'm appreciative now. But during the day-to-day, I was really, really, really sad. It was hard for me to do all these things. I did them because I kept telling myself to shut up and just do the thing and I almost put faith in myself. I didn't know that things were going to be better, but I was like, I got to try. It was hard. And I wasn't perfect about it. Some days I would just not go to the gym. Some days I would drink on the weekdays. Some days, I would call out from work sick because I just felt like sleeping in. And so I would sleep from like 10 p.m. until like 7 p.m. the next day. And then I would get up at like 7:30 p.m. and then I would be like, well, the day's already gone. Might as well just try and sleep again and then wake up at 6 a.m. and try the next day. And so I would take like a bunch of melatonin and try and knock out, but your body's already awake. So I would just stay awake at all these odd hours at night. And I had to break out of that funk and tell myself, hey man, if you're awake, just do it. You're awake now. You might have lost the entire day, but you still have the night. And that's how I had to, That's how I started gymming late at night. That's how I started studying at like 3 a.m. And all the while, my asshole's still bleeding because the surgery didn't work. And it's just such a fucking random problem. I'm sorry. I know you guys don't want to hear about my asshole bleeding, but it's such a weird problem. You know what the worst part was? I asked the guy, like, how does this happen? And he told me there's no real cause. Men aged 27 to 33 just sometimes get it. That's what he said. All his medical years, the knowledge he obtained, that's what he had to tell me. It wasn't that I was wearing like pants that were too tight, or like, he's like, yeah, if you sat a little bit less. No, it's like this happens and you're just unlucky, actually. And not only are you unlucky, you're one of the even unluckier ones who doesn't get it resolved on the first surgery, so you need multiple. And we're going to take money from you this year, and we're not going to schedule your second surgery, until the following year. That way, you get to pay your out-of-pocket max twice. 12 grand. That's what we want from you. We're not going to fix your problem. We just want your 12 grand. I'd have so much money if I didn't have a fucking problem with my asshole, bro. I would. Anyways, one day, things weren't perfect on a day-to-day basis. This was the closest I got to considering not living. Not to glorify it or anything, but that's just the way I was. Just like, you know what, I truly think it would be better. And I would think about this daily for months on end. And I didn't really want to tell anybody about it. I just didn't think anyone would take me seriously. Especially not your guy friends. Hey, if you're feeling like that, don't tell your guy friends. They will joke, because that's how we cope. We just joke about things, and we're going to pray that you really don't mean it. And we'll joke about it until the very end. And then we'll joke about it at the funeral too, like, this fucking guy couldn't hang. This guy couldn't hang. Thankfully, I didn't, but it was on my mind. And I just don't know at what point it becomes a serious threat to my life. Which is why I had to put faith in my routine. And I was like, eventually, one day, I'll stop thinking about it. And it did take about like 7 or 8 months for me to stop thinking about it daily. Then I started thinking about it like weekly, monthly. But anyways, I had to force myself to do everything. It wasn't, even though it was a routine, every step of the way, I had to force myself to do it. And I wasn't perfect about it. But it's not about being perfect on a day-to-day basis or an hourly basis. It's more of the long term. Did you do it more over the course of a month, 6 months, a year? That's what matters more than the day-to-day. And that took me a while to realize the effects of, just because I mess up today, it doesn't mean I have to, toss in the towel. I could just pick it back up tomorrow, and, over the course of a month, I'll be better off than if I had just given up. So one day, I think it was a Sunday, I kind of got fed up, and I was just like, I'm just going to start applying to jobs. Because if I want to be down in Los Angeles, I got to get a job there. So I remember this. I got really fired up on a Sunday, and then I updated my resume. I had a burst of energy, and then I managed to actually put in some work to update the resume. And then I made a list of companies that I saw that were like, pretty decent. I did my research on them, and I think I applied to, 7 places. I submitted my application for 7 different places, and then just like that, my energy just went away. And it was like Sunday evening, and I'm just like immediately depressed. immediately thinking about, not being alive. And then I was like, wow, I can't believe I had so much energy all day today. And all of a sudden now I don't. I couldn't explain to you. I still can't. I don't know how that happens mentally, but my brain shut off, and then I closed my laptop, and then I went to bed. I think I went to bed around like 7:30 or 8 p.m. I didn't even eat dinner. I didn't go to the gym. But I applied to those 7 jobs. And eventually, I kind of forgot about it. That was the only thing that I did. I didn't apply to any other jobs. I didn't even open up LinkedIn or my resume after I did that. And time just kept going on. And then I was just like, all right, well, I'll get back to the job search. I'll do that stuff later. Let me just focus on passing my exam. So I kept saving up my money. Every paycheck, I put some money away. And then I kept going to the gym. And then I kept trying to eat less. Wasn't very successful, but I was losing a little bit of weight. So that feeling of control was creeping back into my life. Dawg was there. He was healthy. My companion was there by my side. Things were, when I really reflected on it, they were better. It just didn't feel like it. Things were objectively way better than when I had just moved back. But I think what I was struggling with was like, well, then why don't I feel happy? I know that they're better, but why don't I feel that way? And the only conclusion I could draw was I have a long way to go. This is just the beginning. And I remember I spent my birthday in Yosemite. What am I, 29 now? Yeah. So must have been my 28th birthday, I think. I went to Yosemite with my mom, and we hiked a bunch there. And I'd never been to Yosemite, and I love hiking, but I was just so miserable that whole time there. I enjoyed the views and everything. I enjoyed spending some time with my mom, getting away from my everyday life, taking a bit of some time off for myself. And I was appreciative that my mom was kind of trying to bring me out of my funk, but I just wasn't happy about it. Got some cool pictures though. I did get some exercise and kind of got in touch with nature a bit. But I turned 28 and it was just such an it was eventful, but like it felt like just another day because I wasn't ecstatic about it. It was usually on my birthday, I'm just feeling good, I like those things. I like milestones. I like to feel like I like to sit down and reflect on my birthday, like what I did in the past year, the things that made me age, not just physically, but mentally, how different I was. But at 28, I was just like, man, I feel worse than I was at 27. And that I haven't had that feeling in a while. But, that was still about halfway into my 2024. That was July. And I had to come back from Yosemite and just continue with my routine. And I remember I actually felt better after I came back. I felt better being in my routine and going to the gym, studying, watching my one episode of Eastbound and Down. Well, at this point I was watching I forget which one, but watching the one episode and then having Chipotle and then studying. And the exam was getting closer and closer until finally it was time for the exam. And I had to drive maybe 90 minutes, maybe close to 2 hours in the morning because the exam starts at like I think 9 and then it goes until like 6 p.m. or something like that. And it was in a remote area. And I remember I got up super early because I didn't want to be late. There was a lot of formalities, and if I didn't want to lose all the money that I spent on the exam, because if it was like a no show, then I'm like out like several $100s. And so I got up around like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then my mom had made some food for lunch. That way I didn't have to worry about making it back, going out and then grabbing some food and coming back in time for the second half of the exam. So I got that, grabbed a couple of Red Bulls, drank my coffee in the morning, and left. And it was storming at 5 in the morning, bro. Storming. Like I couldn't drive on the highway past 45 miles an hour because it was raining so hard. And there was thunder. I don't know why. Thunder seems like a nighttime thing to me. So in the morning, I was just like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like it was bright and sunny all this whole fucking time. And then the one morning that I have to go drive 2 hours to take this day-long exam, it's like storming. I'm like, what if I just die here? What if I just get into a car wreck? I just spin out. And my mind, I was just getting so mad at the weather, bro. Again, like I just slipped back into that mentality on the day of my exam. Like, man, things are so out of my control. Like I spent all this time trying to claw my way back, and this is my point, my day. This is my one chance to prove myself. And if I was just like spiraling out, and I realized I was getting way out of like my depth. So I actually pulled over. I took one of the exits, and I just kind of calmed myself down, and I was just like, this is no way to enter an 8-hour exam. I need to chill the fuck out. And so I just like kind of leaned back and then just let the rain like hit the windshield. And then I just like took several deep breaths, and I was like, I can't control the rain, it's going to happen. Let me just go through with it. I have to drive at 45 miles an hour. So what? This is why I left an hour and a half early. Instead of being 2 hours early, now I'm just going to be a half an hour early. This is exactly what I planned for. So I got myself there, checked in, took the exam, and it was a grueling exam. I truly did not know if I had passed or not. The first half of the exam, there were so many problems that I didn't know. And this was an interesting thing to me. I thought most of the exam was knowing how to take an exam rather than knowing the content of the exam. And one thing about these tests is that there are problems on there that are purposefully not taught, or you can't look them up because you have like a little handbook that you can look up like formulas and stuff. There are some things, there are problems in there that cannot be looked up in the book, in the guidebook. So you have to know what problems are worth your time, and you have to know which ones to skip. And I don't know why I found that really profound, because I was like, that exam was kind of like how I was passing that exam. Knowing how to take that exam was kind of how I had to approach the problems I was having in real life. I had to know which ones were worth my time, which ones were worth investing in, and which ones I had to just be like, yo, fuck it, dude. Like, throw a dart, blindfolded, hope it lands. And I realized what would have made you fail that exam, and this is also what the prep course Dr. Tom was telling, was the worst thing you can do is get stuck on a problem. If you don't know how to immediately solve the problem, just save it for later. And when you come back to it, that reset that your mind has, because you built up this momentum of getting all the things that you know how to solve out of the way, for some reason, when you go back to those problems, you see something in there that you didn't see before. And then the solution comes to you almost naturally. And that wouldn't happen if you had just sat there frustratingly looking at it. You could spend 3 times the amount of time looking at the problem and being like, what the fuck? I don't know what to do. But because I made the decision to be like, I don't know how to do this, let me flag it. I'll come back to it later and figure it out. I think that was the single most important thing that I learned in that exam, in that entire time that I was preparing for it. Because that's how you have to. You don't have the time to solve every problem. Not every problem is meant for you to solve. You just need to skip over the things that you don't immediately know how to solve and trust that you will come back to it at a point later in life and it will make sense to you. So when I went through the first half of that exam, I think there were 80 problems total. The first half of the exam, I think there was like 50 something problems, maybe 55. And I didn't that kind of threw me off because I was like, I thought it was going to be an even split. And so I took a little bit more than 4 hours. I think I took 4 hours and 45 minutes in the first part of the exam, which was stressing me out because I'm like, dude, what if I need a little extra time later? Again, I had to stop myself and be like, get through the first half first. Let's worry about this, and then we can worry about not having enough time later. So I took the time that I needed in the first part, and I made my first pass through. I looked at all 55 questions. I think I answered 17, 18 at most. So I finished the first pass, and then I realized I had flagged like 40 of them. And then I basically flagged them like I didn't know how to do this. So I had finished it, and I got to question 55, and then I look, and it gave me like a little review, and it was just like, you have flagged like 37, 38 questions for review. And I remember I put down my little, like, they gave me like a little pad and a marker and like an eraser to work out the problems, because they didn't want to give you paper to do all the problems by hand. They gave you a little like erasable whiteboard thing. I set it down on the desk, and then I went like this, and I was ready to just start crying because I was like, dude, I'm fucked. I spent all this time, like maybe 5 months, just like stressing about this exam. It was harder than I thought it was. I thought it was harder than the practice exam on the website. And I was like, all I have to show for it is 17 fucking problems. Are you shitting me? Like, I spent all that time just to not even make a 50% on this exam. And then I let my mind spiral for a little bit, and then I just locked back in again. It was kind of like that. I took the exit on the freeway on the way in the morning. I kind of told myself, I'm like, all right, you flagged 37, but you knew 17. Those are 17 questions that I know for sure I don't need to go back and double check. So I was like, let's just go through it again one more time. That's what I told myself in the exam. I was just like, fuck it. I was convinced that I was going to fail. I was like, I'm going to fail, but you know what? Let me go through it one more time. That way I can get some practice, because I know I'm going to have to retake this exam later. So I might as well just, see what the problems are again. So I was making my way through it. And then things just started clicking to me. I was just like, oh, wait, this wasn't as hard as I thought it was. Oh, wait, I remember this. Yeah, I know exactly where to look up this equation to solve this one. And bit by bit, and on my second pass, I think I had 20 questions flagged now. And then I took 3, 4, 5. So every problem, the first 55 problems, I looked at each one, the ones that I didn't know, like 6 or 7 times. That's how many times I was skipping them and coming back to them. And by the end of like the 4.5 hours, I had absolutely no idea how to do maybe 12 or 15 of them, which is a lot. But this is the thing, right? You got to know when to cut your losses. In life, I mean, you could stare at it all you want. There are going to be problems in your life that you're going to be looking at, and you're not going to know the single first thing what to do. You don't even know where to start. You don't even know, is this an energy problem? Is this a time problem? Is this financial? You don't know what it is. It's just a big question mark to you. And on this exam, it's multiple choice. So you guess, like you can just guess, right? You're not so lucky in life. In life, there's no A, B, C, D. You have to, it's more abstract. But on this exam, I could at least be like, fuck it, I don't know how to do this shit. I'm just gonna guess. So I put C for all of them. And I was like, I gotta get one, right? I gotta get like I gotta get like statistically what? I might get like 4 out of 15 of them. I mean, come on. Give me something here. So some of it is left up to chance at the end of the day. And that's how I got through the first half of the exam. And then the second half of the exam, I got my lunch, bathroom break, came back, and I started the second half of the exam, but the second half was a lot less calculation based and more like it was more industry based knowledge. And this part I felt better about because I'm like, oh, I don't need 4 hours for this stuff. I can actually do this in like 2.5. And that's when I realized I was just like, man, I was tripping in that first section, like because I was thinking like I should have saved some more time for the second half of the exam. But then I realized it's less questions and it's less calculation, so it doesn't take as much time per problem. And then I realized I'm like, wait a second. In that first part of the exam, I only really didn't know how to do 12 of the 55. That's pretty good because you only need 70% to pass. And then it wasn't until the second half of the exam where I'm like, oh shit, I might actually pass. I don't need to retake this. And then I started like getting really into it. And I did this exact same approach. I was like, I have no idea. Sometimes I just flagged them, and then the remaining 35 or 25 questions, whatever, I would just do like 4 or 5 passes on each one. And again, by the end of the 4 or 5 passes, I had maybe like 10 to 12 questions that I just completely guessed on. I put C for every single one of them. And that's how my 8 hours went. And by the time I walked out of there, I was like doing the math and I was just like, okay, I know that they throw away about 5 or 6 questions because what they do is they put these questions on the exam to see how many people get them right, to gauge whether they should put these questions on the following year's exam. So those questions don't actually count towards your grade. You don't know which ones they are, but they're scattered amongst the tests. So I'm like, okay, I took those questions out. And then I was like, I just need 70% to pass. So I did the math and I was just like, man, I'm right on the edge of like, I know for a fact I got this many questions right. I'm right on the edge. At this point, it comes down to whether luck is finally favoring me once this entire year, or, if I was ready to accept the fact with how shitty the year was going, I was ready to accept the fact that of all the questions that I guessed, none of them were C. And I was like, if that's the case, I deserve it for some reason. I don't know why, but clearly I do. But I was like, hey, fuck it, dude. That exam's over. I'm 2 hours away from home. My brain's fried and I'm hungry. So instead of going home, I don't know what prompted me to do this. I went to go get omakase in San Francisco. So I drove like 2 hours from the exam center to an omakase place in San Francisco. And I had some sake and fish. It was pretty good. But like I remember sitting there after having a few sakes, and I was just like, man, it'd be really embarrassing if I didn't pass that exam, because I'm acting like I just got the results and I was just like officially passed my professional engineering exam and I'm already celebrating. But I was like, all right, man, I'm like, whatever. It was a nice dinner. So that was the day of my exam. Started out with a storm, ended up with some nice high-end fish and quality rice wine. And then I had to go through the grueling process of waiting 2 weeks for my exam results. I think it takes 10 business days for them to publish on your website, on the NCAAS website. And you know what was funny? I told he's not. I hope he doesn't see this, but I told my manager at the time that I was taking the exam, and I must have given off this energy of being like an idiot or something, because I didn't even say anything else besides the fact that I need to take this day off. And then he was just like, "Oh, yeah, no problem, man. And hey, just so you know, don't feel bad if you don't pass on the first try. A lot of people don't." And I remember thinking, like, dude, fuck this guy, man. Why would you say that? Like, why would you say that to anybody? What a hater, dude. But, I mean, he's not wrong. It's just like, why did you assume that about me? And I was just like, man, I've been putting some weird energy out into the world for someone to so confidently tell me to my face, like, you're kind of an idiot. I understand. And then feel bad for you. Anyways, it took 10 days for the results to post to my exam, to my portal. And then I woke up one day and I refreshed the page, and then I saw the green thing, the green little banner, and it said passed. And I felt my face just break out into the biggest smile that I've had all year. And I was a little bit asleep when I was checking the portal on my phone, but when I saw the green passed, my face broke into the biggest smile, and then I was instantly awake. I didn't need any coffee that day. For the first time the entire year, I felt happy because I saw the result all at once. That moment that I was waiting for all year, this was the first step, and I felt it. And it was nice because when I bought that exam prep course for $1,000, I wasn't sure. I wasn't happy about it. I didn't know where it was going to lead me. When I started studying, I didn't know where it was going to lead me. But those days, months of preparing, it led up to this moment, this morning, where I get to have this for myself. And I had passed. And I realized I did it. I did the thing that I knew all along I can do. It just takes some time. Not everything happens immediately. And if it did happen immediately, would you even really appreciate it? It was a good moment, man. That was a good day. I told my boss, my managers, they were very happy about it. And you know what's crazy? I got that notice that I had passed the exam, and then like the next day, remember when I said I applied for 7 jobs? One of them hit me up and got an interview with me, and they made an offer for like way more money than I was making at the time. And they said, yeah, you could start in LA, and we would love to have you on board. And it came with much more responsibilities, a little bit more freedom. I didn't feel like a cog in the machine. And this was like the day after I passed my exam. And I was like, oh, that was like a double like hit right there. It was like smoking a cigarette after 6 shots of whiskey. That was like the real taste of freedom, because I'm like, oh my God, it's so close. I can taste it. That freedom, that vision of me on my recliner staring at a big TV, watching multiple episodes, not just one per night. It's almost there. It's coming. I could feel it. And obviously I accepted. It was too good to turn down. But then it made me realize, like, oh my God, this era of my life is ending. This job, this that I've had since I graduated college, it got me through New York. It got me through my divorce. It got me through that year of living at home with my parents. It's all coming to an end. And it wasn't even bad terms or anything. It was just, it was just business, man. Like, if I'm getting more for the same thing that I'm doing, then I'm gonna take it. And it's in the city that I want to be in, and it's a little bit more free. Yeah, it was the right move. So I passed the exam, and then I told him on I think it refreshed on a Tuesday or Wednesday. I think on a Wednesday, I told him, "Hey, I passed my exam." Everybody's super happy. They're like, "Wow, we have another professional like engineer on the way." And then the next day, I put in my 2 weeks notice. I gave them 4 weeks because you want to be on good terms, but it was. I want to say that I felt bad about it, but man, when I saw that offer, I didn't feel that bad. It was a good feeling, man, because everything was coming together all at once. In the same way that everything bad happened all at once, week after week after week. Now passing that exam, getting this offer, and then finally actually being a little bit like, by this point I had lost like 10, 12 pounds from all the exercise and from consciously drinking less and stuff. So I was in control, and I could feel my masculinity coming back into my life. And it just felt good to put in that 2 week or the 4 week notice. Like, I'm moving on, in every aspect of my life. But the problem was I had to figure out my shit quick. They wanted me on board in LA very, very fast. I had to push for a later start date. They wanted me to start. They were willing to send all the equipment over and like to start in November. But I told them, like, I got a lot going on. I didn't want to tell them the whole like my whole life story, but I got them to accept a January start date. And so I was supposed to start in January. I think when I got the notice I had passed my exam, it was sometime in November. And they told me, okay, we expect you to be here in January. Most of the job is remote, but I think we go in 1 day a week. So, but the expectation was for me to be in Los Angeles in January, which, backtracking, meant I had to get an apartment before I started my job. And if I started in January, that means I have to get an apartment like by the end of December. But then I was like, wait a sec, I don't even have a car. How am I supposed to get a car? I'm supposed to get a car and an apartment in LA in a month? I have like 5 weeks to do all this? And just as quickly as I was elated, I was tasting financial freedom I was on the cusp of this new chapter of my life. I was just like, I have all these problems again now. I just passed my exam, but like now I have this problem. Like, how am I supposed to get a car? How am I supposed to find an apartment? And so again, it just felt like I was taking the exam again, except in the more abstract sense of my life now. Now there's no multiple choices. Now I have to really think about what I have to make those choices for myself, right? On the exam, you're given A, B, C, D. In real life, you don't know if there's 4 options. There could be less, there could be more. Furthermore, you have to make those options. You have to give yourself these options and say, this is a potential solution, or this, or this, or this, or this. And that's what I had to do. I told myself, I had a brief moment of celebration that was quickly just, I shuttled into this new thing where I realized I had to get the car. I had to figure out the apartment situation. And this entire time, my asshole is still bleeding, bro. My fucking thing is not resolved. So, and I'm trying to get a hold of my surgeon, and this guy just won't talk. Like, he's putting me on the phone with like his nurse assistant, and I'm like, dude, I just want to talk to the guy. I want to ask him what's up. And she's like, I can answer all your questions. I'm like, but you haven't been. And I'm like, and you say that you can do everything that he does, but you don't. And oh, dude, I get so mad when I think about the medical system, bro. Especially on the receiving side of it. It was terrible. What I ended up having to do was go to the emergency room to get an emergency drain put in. And all I could do was buy myself time because I couldn't get the actual surgery done in 2024. So what I had to do was I didn't even have a car yet or anything like that. I had to go to the emergency room and get myself a drain. And then they told me this will buy you maybe 6 weeks at most before you have to go get the surgery or go to the ER again. And by the way, the only reason I went to the ER was because they refused to drain me at urgent care or at my primary care. I don't know what's going on in the medical system, bro, but I shouldn't have to go to the ER. And the ER was like $2,500 every time I visited too, because they wanted to take all these scans and and I had to just tell them, please stop fucking me in the ass financially. Every time I save up like $5,000, it just goes straight into the medical system. And I would have so much more money every time. I went to the ER like 4 or 5 times that year. And it wasn't enough. And that was the worst part. I kept trying to get the problem solved in 2024. And in 2025, my insurance resets. And on top of that, I have a new job. So in this new job, I'm like, I don't know what they cover. Like, what if my out of pocket's like $9,000 instead of 6, you know? So I had this entire time, I was like, that's what was stressing me the fuck out. I was just like, dude, it's just, I would be able to handle this if I didn't have this potential surgery on my mind. If I could just focus on the actual progressing my life and like living and succeeding, and like I can't even be too happy about this exam, like passing the exam and getting a new job offer, because I have to worry about like this surgery. And I was like, how am I going to afford the surgery? How am I going to afford a car? How am I going to afford an apartment? I mean, we're talking like that's easily like 40, 50 grand right there, like for everything combined, you know? So I was freaking out about it. Fuck, I gotta piss. All right. I'll be right back. Man, I didn't even realize we're coming up on 2 hours here. I don't even know what I talked about. This is all 2024? Well, there's more. So I just, I got the problems with the car and the apartment. So at this point, I had to step back again. I had to ground myself, tell myself, just do one thing at a time. And what I do when I have a bunch of things overwhelming me is I journal about it. And then what I find is that when I journal about these things, usually the things that matter the most are the things that I write about the most and first. So I realized, well, I'm not going to get anywhere if I don't have a car. So the car was the first one that I had to get off the list. I was like, I got to get my own car. This entire time I've been bumming off my dad's Prius. Fantastic mileage, but I think I drove like 20,000 miles just in that time that I was back home. I wasn't even home I was home for just about a year, and I think I drove 20,000 miles. That was the result of me trying to cling on to this identity of being a stand-up comedian and driving so many miles for shit gigs that I didn't even enjoy or get anything out of. And then also trying to catch up with friends and, just being so far away from everything. But either way, if I was going to put miles on a car, it had to be my own, just really keep clawing to get more of that masculinity, more of that control, more of things that are mine and things that I have manifested. Sound like a white girl there, but it's true. That's what I needed. So I realized at first I was like, well, maybe I can go down to Los Angeles, maybe scope out some apartments and then sign a lease and then come back and get the car and then drive down with all my stuff. And then as time was unfolding, I was like, I don't have time for that. Plus I have to get an Airbnb there, and then what happens then? Like, what if I don't find anything in the time frame? Like, how am I supposed to schedule everything within the next couple of weeks? So I realized that the only way to do this was to, first of all, prioritize the car. And then second of all, I have to make this insane decision to drive down with all of my stuff at the end of the year, get there without an apartment, and just find one and sign a lease. I realized that was the only way that I can make this work. And it was crazy. It was even crazier than going to New York. Getting anxious just thinking about it. I mean, I solved the problem, but getting anxious just remembering how much stress it was at the time. So this was awesome. Getting the car was fantastic. So many life lessons I learned, man. I really have to give credit to one of my best friends, Faraz. He gave me so much advice on. He's a car guy, so he knows a lot about cars. He knows the value of cars, and more importantly, he taught me how to navigate a car sale, right, as a consumer. And he gave me all this advice. We did a lot of research together. He was trying to convince me to do a private sale. I'll save a lot of money that could be going to my surgeon, but eventually I was just like, dude, I don't think I have the time for a private sale, to do all the research into it, to look up the Carfax and everything, pay for. I was like, I don't think I have the time. We're talking I need a car in 10 days because I need the rest of the time to pack my shit and then drive down and then start looking for apartments. So first thing I did to tackle all these problems at once, journal, get my priorities in order. And then second thing I did was put in time off request at my current job, because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be working and looking for an apartment. So I'm just going to assume, and that's what I had to do. I had to assume that I was going to get a car and that I was going to be in Los Angeles for a 2-week period of time. I didn't even start looking for cars at this point, but I took time off because I was like, okay, during this time off, I'm going to be in an Airbnb in Los Angeles looking for apartments. With what car? I don't know. I'm going to figure that out later, but right now I need to put in this request. So I put in the request and then I got the time off approved, and it was towards the end of my time with the company anyway. So it worked out, and it was actually going to be around Christmas time. I think I drove pretty much on the 23rd. I think I drove on the 23rd. But then that was how I was going to spend my Christmas and my New Year's, was looking for an apartment in LA. Still didn't have a car. So I did all that. And then I was like, okay, now I can do the search for the car. So one day by the way, this entire time, for some reason, I wanted a Lexus. I don't know why, man. I'm not even a big car guy. I think I just wanted to prove something to others. Yeah, I got a Lexus. But I don't even give a shit about that, I just want something with good mileage, lasts me a long time. And I don't have to keep taking it in for maintenance, you know? So this entire time that I was thinking about a car, I had to talk myself down from a Lexus. And I eventually realized I was just like, the perfect car for me, because I want to go like on adventures and road trips. I like hiking. I like to do all this like outdoor stuff, and I like to have space. So I realized I should just get a RAV4. That's like a adventure car. I had a Camry growing up, so it drives pretty similarly. And I realized, again, what I'm doing is I'm prioritizing the things that I care about. I thought that I had to have a certain type of car to give off a certain image. And then I thought the other way around, where I was just like, okay, fuck the image. I just need something economical to get me from point A to point B. And I was like, well, what if I have a little bit of both, right? I don't have to go completely on one end or the other. I don't have to have like a complete luxury package, but I also don't have to live in like a shitbox Corolla that's like from the 90s, I'm sure it would work, and I'm sure I would save a lot of money. But I realized for me, I want to like the car that I'm driving. I want to, even if I'm not going to drive too much, I want to be able to do the activities that I want, right? If I'm going to spend the money, I'm going to get more out of it if I actually enjoy the thing that I have. So instead of saving money and getting, an economical thing that like a Prius from like 2010 or something like that, I decided to find the middle ground and getting a RAV4 hybrid. And I started looking for that. And I've searched Toyota dealerships within a 3-hour drive radius from me. And I looked on their used lots, and I was looking for a RAV4 hybrid with a, good balance for the price and like the mileage and everything. And I made a list. I think I had like 18 listings that I saved down. I didn't realize this about RAV4s, dude. Really in demand. I mean, I made that list on like a Monday, and then on Tuesday, I had called a few of the dealerships, and I'm like, hey, I saw this listing. Can I come by and see it? And multiple of them were just like, oh, we sold that yesterday. And I was like, what do you mean? I just saw it. And they're like, yeah, these are really popular. You gotta, they sell themselves. People didn't even want to. I had a car salesman hang up on me because I wasn't ready to buy it that day. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to buy the car just based on a phone call with you. And he's just like, well, someone will. And he hung up on me. I was like, no way, dude. That had to be some crazy reverse psychology that he was trying to play on me. I'm like, I almost called him back, and I'm like, you sure? But I was like, no, fuck that, dude. Fuck that. But I mean, he must have been right, because by the time it was Wednesday, I was down to like 7 or 8 listings, and I was like, okay, so I have to buy the car tomorrow. Otherwise, I have to do all that research that I did again for something that's just going to sell out. So I saw one that was about an hour and a half away from me, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is like the car that I wanted. It had like 90,000 miles on it, which it's a Toyota. That's like the first fifth of its life. You know what I mean? And it was a really good price. I think it was like 25 or 26K. And I remembered everything that Faraz told me about negotiating. And I saw a couple of other listings in Walnut Creek. And I was like, I just had to pick one. I was just like, I have to do something. So I basically, I was already on my way out from this job. So I told him like, hey, I got a personal thing. So I logged off at around like 2 p.m. And I got my shit together. I got all my paperwork. I got my checkbook. And at this point, I had enough money saved up to put down a significant amount on the car. So I drove out there. I don't know what I expected. It was a Thursday, and it was about a 90-minute drive. I get there. and he hands me the keys, and he's like dealing with this other customer, and he's just like, hey man, I trust you, all right, just take it for a spin and let me know what you think. And because usually they have to like get your license or whatever, like he just kind of he's just like, here's the keys, just don't crash it and don't make me regret this. And then I took it out for a spin. Dude, I knew immediately, I was just like, fuck, this is the one I want. But I didn't want to pay 26 grand for it. I felt like that was a bit too much. So I came back, and we were talking, and the negotiating part was really interesting to me because I had never really I never tried to negotiate. Not just prices, but I realized I've never tried to get the best deal for myself in anything in life, really. I just took things as they were. And this realization that things could be better if you just ask for it was kind of a crazy notion to me. Actually, that's how, even for job offers, like just because you get the first offer, it doesn't mean that that's the best that you should always counter offer. And I took what I learned from the counter offer for the jobs and like marketing myself. And I took all my research that I had for all these other listings. And I remember we were talking, and he told me there's no way we can bring the price down. But I told him, and I think this is the line that I used. I was like, look, I'm moving down to LA, and I'm going to be driving down in 10 days in a RAV4. The only question is whether it's going to be your RAV4 or if it's going to be the one in Walnut Creek. And I remember he looked at me, and I think that was the moment he took me a little bit seriously. And then he finally started knocking a few dollars off. And then I think I worked it around to, I think I got like 1,000 off, which, I probably could have done better. But at the time, these things were selling so fast, I was happy to even get 1,000 off of a car like that. So, I think all in all, out the door price, taxes, everything, I think I got away with like 23.5 or something like that. Not bad at all. Not bad at all for a RAV4 hybrid. 2019. It's got CarPlay and everything. It's got everything I need, man. It's an adventure car. I love that car. So I bought it. I bought it that day. I wrote a check for 20 grand. That was almost everything that I had saved up. And I put that much down, and I financed the rest. And I didn't even have a plan. I didn't even think that I was going to buy that car that day. I was like, well, maybe if I just come back the next day with my parents or something, because I had driven with my dad's car to the thing. And so he was equally baffled. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, all right, come back tomorrow with your dad. But he's like, but you have to drive the car off the lot. So I drove it off the lot and then parked it back again, and then drove home in my car after making the sale. And the next day I came back and I picked up the car. And again, I drove home in that new car, and I parked it in front of my house. And then I told myself, I'm like, man, 4 days ago, I was tripping about this. I solved this problem of not having a car in 4 days. I am capable of so much more than I give myself credit for. I realized I really can do all these things. And when you tell people that you have a month to buy a car and then find an apartment and then transition into a new job, it does sound like a lot. But when I got that car, I realized, man, I'm doing this whole thing, because now I set up the rest of the dominoes. I just have to knock them down. I got the Airbnb in Koreatown, and then I got the I got the time off approved, and then I had the job. Like, I signed the offer, and I signed the second offer, And all I have to do is find the apartment now, which is a daunting task. But I had already, throughout this entire year, I was saving listings on my phone through one of those apps. I forget if it's Street Easy, but they have one for like LA. And I saved all these listings, and a lot of them, weren't available, but I had the building names, and I was like, well, they probably have other stuff in this building. So I called up all these buildings, and then I ended up chatting with like their AI systems and everything, which so annoying, dude. Give me a real fucking person, because these AI things were fucking up all these appointments and everything. They were giving me appointments at like midnight on a Sunday. I'm like, I don't think I want to see your apartment on at midnight on a Sunday. And so I had to call them, follow up. It was kind of stressful, but I set up, I think maybe 12 viewings. I set up 12 viewings, and then I went to 9 over the course of 8 days. So I got an Airbnb in K-Town for, I think 2 weeks, 14 days. And that was like $2,500, which is pretty good rate. Not gonna lie, that's a really good rate, but still it hurt. I just dropped $20,000 on a car. And so I saw that deduct, and then I saw another $2,500, and then my insurance took out a little bit more for the asshole surgery again. Just keep seeing money getting depleted. It's because it took so long, like, for me to save up all this money throughout the year, and then to just see it like instantly in like the month of December just go away was crazy. But again, I thought about where the money was going. Right? It wasn't just going away on like a trip to the Bahamas or whatever. It was an investment, and I had to see it that way, the same way that I saw the prep course, because this money is being spent now, but really it's going to create opportunities for more income later in my life. And I had to believe that. I had to put faith in that. And so kind of just close my eyes, shut off the banking app, and just paid my dues, and that's what I got the Airbnb, and then I had the listings all lined up, and finally it was ready for me to, everything was lined up. All I had to do was pack all my things, make sure Dawg doesn't run away again, and then drive down. I decided to have one last little party before I left. So I invited a bunch of people. This time I didn't invite. I invited who deserved to be there, who weren't just trying to get an update on my life. I realized not everyone needs to know every aspect of my life, unless I do it on a podcast. But it felt good because I had people there at the home. We had some good food. We had some good drinks, and we did a little white elephant too. So it was nice, man. It was a nice little get together, and it was people celebrating me, celebrating my comeback. That's how I viewed it, man, because I was just down so bad. But in the course of a year, I did all these things that I thought were impossible. I brought myself out of the rut. I had lost weight. I got a little bit stronger. I was, running again, which was tough after ACL and spine surgery. I got a new job, more money. I got a car, and now I was about to get a new apartment, start my life over in a new city. I mean, these are things that if you had told me someone did these things, I would probably assume it took them a couple of years at least, maybe 2 or 3. To do this all in the span of like 13 months, I was very proud of myself. And for some reason, I felt like guilty about feeling good. When you're down bad, when you're depressed for that long, a taste of happiness feels undeserved, even though you rightfully earned it. Even though you don't have to earn it, you can just feel happy. I realized I hadn't been this happy in so long that this emotion felt alien to me. And to see all my friends there by my side, genuinely happy for me, that was so nice, man. That was so wholesome. No one was jealous or competitive. Like, they were just truly happy. And that's such a rare quality to find in adults. There's too many people out there having their own little silent competitions with you. They don't want you to do better than them. But it wasn't even a comparison thing. It was just like all these people were like, man, you were in the shitter and now you're not. Cheers. That's what it was. There was nothing beyond that. And that was great, man. To be reminded after all that time that there are people in your life. I'm really grateful for that, because some people don't even have that. When you talk about isolation, I felt isolated, but these people were there, and they still are. So I had that little going away party, and this was my final visit to the ER was around this time too. So I had gone to the ER, and I think 3 days before the party. So I was still pretty raw. I was on a lot of painkillers at the time. But, I made it work. And as shitty as it was, I kind of owned it at that point. I was just like, yeah, I went to the ER for the 4th fucking time this year. The only solace that I have is like I met my out of pocket. So this time the ER was free. How lucky am I, And then I was just like, yeah, I'm going to have to drive down in 2 days. And they told me at the ER, make sure you're not sitting for long periods of time. And I'm like, well, I have to drive down to LA in 2 days. And they're like, well, here's some extra bandages. Like, you got to do what you got to do at the end of the day. But I figured if I was going to do it, I'm going to have a celebration and go out with a bang. And I had packed up all my stuff. I remember I still have the picture. I love this picture. It's just a picture of the trunk of my car. It's packed to the brim. All these moving boxes. I got my suitcase in there. And then I got it was like everything in my life that I owned was in that car, in that little space. I didn't have a whole lot of things, I realized. In New York, my apartment was furnished, so I didn't really have furniture. I stopped buying clothes. I stopped buying shoes. I didn't even have my tennis bag at the time. I stopped playing sports, I didn't have anything. I had what was left of my wardrobe, and the suitcase wasn't even mine. It was something that my mom gave me, and I realized, I'm like, man, if this is a video game, like, my inventory is like pretty much empty. It's like I'm starting a new game. But it filled up my car, and it was like that my car was holding my entire life together at that point. And then I put Dawg inside of it. And then I drove, I hugged my parents, and I think that was the first time that I was really appreciative of them, is when I left. It took me leaving to really appreciate what they did for me. Because not everyone has that safety net of being able to go back and live with their parents for a year to get their life together, That's something I just took for granted. I was like, well, they're my parents. Of course they should let me in. Of course. Yeah, why aren't they like catering to my every demand? Like, I'm an only child. Of course, this is how it's always been. I deserve to be so sad. But when I was leaving, I realized I spent 13 months here. I went through this whole journey, and they were there throughout my entire shitty attitude. And finally now I'm happy. And as I'm pulling away from the driveway, it all hit me at once. All of this was thanks to them. They gave me the space for recovery. Not everyone is so fortunate as I am. And then I drove down for 6 hours on painkillers. I drove down, took my time. I had my car was full, so it was a heavy load. It was a beautiful drive. Just put on some music. And for 6 hours, I drove down. I stopped at Kettleman City, had some In-N-Out, made the rest of my leg. And I remember the last hour of the drive is when you really start getting into the city. I remember getting like goosebumps, like, oh my God, I'm here, and I saw someone, I got off on the freeway and I think I was like 15 minutes away from my Airbnb or something like that, maybe 30. And I saw someone, I started seeing all these stylish cars, it wasn't just the standard. It was like, and I saw someone in like, I don't even know what to call it. It was like a weird car. It has 2 wheels in the front and like 1 wheel in the back. And it was just this dude and it had flames on the side of it. It was open and this guy just had a helmet on and he pulled up next to me and he just looked at me and he was just like, and I was like, dude, I think I'm in LA. Like it just hit me and I just started laughing in my car alone. And I was just like, dude, I'm here now. like this is, and then I looked around me and like there was all these billboards and stuff, all this advertisement. I'm like, holy shit, I'm actually here. Like, I don't know what just happened this entire year, but I am here. That dream of like getting closer to my recliner with the beer and watching TV. It was almost there, dude. And then I made my way to the Airbnb. I parked the car and I brought all my stuff in, brought Dawg in, and then finally just relaxed on the couch. And I realized, man, it's happening now. And I took that first night to myself. I said, I'm going to pretend like everything is worked out. I'm going to pretend like I have the lease signed already. Tonight, I'm going to celebrate. So I went to a Korean barbecue spot and I got a bunch of soju and I ate my heart out. That was one of the best meals. That was better than the omakase, I think, because this one felt like, oh, I really did it. I earned it. The omakase, I was like, oh man, I don't even know if I passed that exam. But this one was like, I did all of this shit. I did it all. And I'm at the finishing line right now. And I just need to go. I need to finish strong. This meal is for that. And I got home pretty drunk. The good thing about K-Town is like, you don't got to drive anywhere. So I just stumbled back into my Airbnb, passed the fuck out, and woke up the next day. And I was like, all right, time to go look at apartments. So that was what I did for the first 9 days. And dude, the AI shit was pissing me the fuck off. Like, I'm in no way really against AI. Like, personally, it's helped me out a lot in my life. I do see the downsides of it on a grander scale. But at that time, it was particularly fucking me up because it kept messing up my appointments for the viewings of all the apartments. And so I wasn't able to see all the places that I wanted to see. And at this point, I was pretty much, I knew I was going to be in K-Town. That's what worked for my budget, like where I want to be close to my job. And I also wanted to be in a walkable area. I didn't want to be, because I liked that about New York. Like I liked being able to walk, have my like go-to bar, my go-to restaurants. I like that. I want to be able to do that because I know in LA, well, honestly, in most cities outside of New York, you really have to drive You had to be intentional about a lot of the things that you do. So I knew I was going to be in K-Town, and I was only looking at apartments in this area, and it was nice, but I wasn't finding the things that I was looking for. I realized I'm going to have to pay a lot more than I thought, and I'm going to get a lot less than what I had envisioned. And I had pretty much talked myself into this hole. I was just like, all right, I thought I was going to get a 1-bedroom, and then I was like, okay, well, I can do it with the studio. Maybe next year I can find a 1-bedroom. And so I was settling for like a studio for like $2,700, and it didn't feel right. And then it was in this weird location. I didn't like the building either. The guy was kind of weird, not even mean, just kind of weird. It was, the vibes were off, man. It didn't feel like my home. It just felt like a dormitory or something like that. It just felt cramped. But I was ready to sign that one. And then on the last day, the very last viewing that I had, it was for this apartment. And this apartment was like way cheaper, and it's way bigger. And I realized I was like, wow, where the fuck was this? Like I was ready to settle for like the worst thing ever. But this one, it has like so much more. I have space to like stretch my legs. Like I can take up space. I don't have to live in like a little shoebox apartment that I did in New York. Like I can actually have the things that I want, a separate bedroom. What a luxury that is in today's day. And yeah, it's expensive, but again, money gets you the experience. The money can come back. The money will come back. But spending it on the right things, that will elevate your life. So on the very last day of my viewings, I ended up signing. And I got this. And then I felt this incredible rush of euphoria where I was like, I did everything. I did everything that I had to. Now I had 9 days or 10 days, I think, until my job started. And, there was like there was things that I had to do. Like, obviously I had to get the bed delivered on the right time and like order furniture and stuff. But that part was later. But I had finally found my new home. And it felt like home too. That was a really, really good feeling. I remember I went to the coffee shop the next morning after I had signed the lease. And I was getting all my affairs in order. I was getting I was getting coffee, and I journaled about it. And I had a really good journaling session where I was just letting myself feel proud. Again, I don't know why I felt guilty about feeling proud about this achievement, but I was, and I just let go of that feeling, and I let myself be happy about getting my shit together. And I did it in such a short amount of time, Well, it felt like such a long time at when I was going through it. But looking back, I truly can't believe I turned it all around in 13, 14 months. I had to go through a lot of expenses, though. I mean, that was the one thing that I kept going back and forth about was the money. I for once tasted financial freedom, and then in the span of 6 weeks, I just immediately was flat broke again. But it was a different kind of broke. It was like, yeah, I'm broke, but I have so much more going for me. When I moved back from New York, I was broke, but I had nothing. I had no motion, no plans, nothing. So it's funny. When you don't have money, you have, my mindset was in two different places. at both of these moments in time where I had zero money. I was incredibly happy the second time, but I was very, very sad the first time. Which leads me to believe that it isn't really everything, money. It's more about what you have on the horizon. That's what made me really happy. The idea that I get to prove myself, take on a new task at this new job, find new friends, become social again, rediscover the things that make me me in a new city. No one knows me. No one knows what I was like in high school or college or even New York unless I tell them. What do people know besides what you show them? I got to start all that over and redefine, not only to others, but to myself, what I'm about. That was worth more than any amount of money that you can give me. It still is. What I did in that moment when I was broke the second time was truly start living like my life wasn't based around this number in my checking account. And yeah, I mean, you want to set yourself up for the future, but that's how I saw what I was doing right now, right? The finances will figure themselves out to a certain degree. You got to be smart still at some point, save where you can. But one thing I stopped regretting was investing in myself, investing in my true interests, not just the material things. A nice dinner's a nice dinner, whatever. But if I'm investing money into like this microphone or this equipment right here, it's all worth it because it leads to something greater. It leads to purpose for me. And purpose was something that I was lacking for so long. Man, I'm going to have to break it up. I really want to get into 2025, but so that was 2024 and signing the lease and everything. That was pretty much catching up the rest of the year. And then into 2025, that's how it started. I moved in. I started my job. I started furnishing the apartment. I started taking up space in this new city. I started gaining weight again. I was stressed out. It was weird. I was stressed out physically, but mentally I was on top of the world. I had gotten everything that I wanted, but I was so, I'd gone through a lot, like with this. By the way, I'm still like a week or two out from surgery. So I'm still recovering, not surgery, the ER where they did the procedure. So I still got to figure that out. So my body is under a lot of stress. I'm on medication, but mentally I'm doing fantastic, So and this time I was drinking and eating because I was happy, because I was having a good time. I was in a new city. I was finding new spots. The food was out of the world. Like, I mean, it still is. Every day, I'm so thankful that I live here because the food is so good. And it was a little too good. I was eating too much and I was drinking a lot again. But I was doing this because I was happy, not because I was depressed. And that was a good feeling. So, the weight gain came back. All the progress that I put in for the gym and everything like that, gone. It's so much easier to put on weight than it is to lose it, dude. Oh my God. It took me I want to say 9 months to lose like 12 pounds. It took me 9 days to gain it back. Yeah. But that's, I let myself have it. I let myself just be like, you know what, man? If gaining 12 pounds was the worst thing that happened in this entire move, that's a great move. That's a great fucking year. Everything I did, if that's the worst thing that happened, man, I've been through worse. I'll lose the weight again. So that's how I started my 2025. Fuck, I want to keep going, but no, I'll save it. 2025 was an awesome year. I might even have to break that one up into multiple episodes, but for now, we'll call it. Nice.